Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Every Day is Friday, the show where we dive into the stories and experiences from people from all walks of life. Today we have Eric Biggs. He's a stand up comedian, a storyteller, and the host of the hilarious Birthday Boys comedy. Whether he's on stage or behind the mic, he's known to deliver the jokes that hit just right. Let's dive in. Eric, how you doing?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad, man. It's always a good day. Any day we're above Earth, man. We're doing good. So
So true. For the listeners who may not be familiar with your line of work yet, could you give us a quick rundown of who you are and what you do?
yeah, I stand up comic. Live here in Austin. Started off in Missouri. I'm the host of the Birthday Boys podcast over on YouTube. I also have a couple of the podcasts I co-host and help produce on. Surviving with Celia Contreras. I am a co-producer and co-host on that show, also on the Birthday Boys YouTube channel. And then I have another podcast I do with another really funny comedian, Matt Butera. That's called Thick Skin. Basically, it's two fat guys hanging out every day. So uh, I do way too many podcasts. It is not. It's ridiculous. It's not needed. And then I'm a stand-up comedian. So travel around, tell jokes, try to make people giggle when I can.
No, I know what you mean, Eric. Eric, what inspired you to become a comedian?
Yeah, I think I just realized that working hard sucks. Like I was a mechanic for years, and I had a semi truck almost fall on me, and I went, "Uh-oh, I need to get a different line of work as soon as I possibly can." And with all the podcast boom and the comedy boom and everything, I was like, "Oh, I think I can try that out." And then after several years of bombing in bars and doing crappy road gigs and stuff like that, I finally moved down to Austin where I can do it a little bit more seriously, and it's the funnest thing on earth.
No, that's amazing. Do you remember the first time you realized you were funny?
I don't know. I think I was just always I think I took myself really serious whenever I was young. Like whenever I was in like high school and stuff, I thought I was I don't know, like maybe smarter than I was or whatever. So I feel like I was just a douchebag for the majority of like my young years. And I think just as I got older, I was like, oh, it doesn't need to be that serious. Like you can fuck around and have fun. And life's a lot easier if you're, not trying to be so serious about everything, about taking everything so personally. If you're just trying to have fun. And I think I learned that in college of like, oh, it's a lot better to be like the fun party guy that's, everyone's like, oh, we want you here because you're fun to hang out with than if you're the guy that sucks. So, you know.
No, that's amazing. I mean, do you remember what your first stand-up performance was like?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I remember I wore a polo shirt because I thought you were supposed to look nice. And I went into this bar called Eastside Tavern, that's in Columbia, Missouri. I show up and it's like a grungy, dirty dive bar. It's a super cool place. They've been doing open mic comedy there for like 10 years now. And but I went in and you had to sign up like 2 months in advance because it was super, super backlogged. So I show up and I'm wearing a polo shirt that's like bright yellow because I was like, oh, I'll look nice on stage. And I showed up and I'm sure it was not good, but I got like a laugh. And I was like, cool, that felt cool. I want to do this now. And it was just enough to make me think like, oh, I this could be a thing.
That's an incredible story. I mean, stepping on stage for the first time takes much courage.
Yeah, it's one of those that I never really like had a lot of like stage fright. Yeah, I did like some stuff in like school, throughout school and stuff like that where you perform or public speak or things like that. And I don't know, it never really bothered me to talk to people. I guess the gift of the gab or whatever you want to call it. But so I always kind of had that. So the talking on stage and being in front of people never really got to me. It was just you had to then figure out what to say. So that was the hard part, I guess.
No, it seems like you're on the right path. I mean, who has been your biggest influence in comedy growing up?
Yeah, I would say Bill Burr definitely was. I would say Bill Burr was the guy that made me realize um, the different types of comedy. Because I grew up, seeing a lot of like the blue collar comedy tour stuff like that, and I was like, okay, like that's a lane, and that's kind of like what my parents watched and stuff. But I remember watching Bill Burr whenever I was in college and being like, oh, this is this is comedy. Like you can express yourself like in this way. It doesn't have to be, like the you might be a redneck or you're doing a character or anything like that. It could just be you're mad at your wife and you're talking about it. And I think he's been the guy that he I like the path that he kind of went of anytime anything goes on, he's like, that's whatever. It's not real. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. We tell jokes for a living. It's okay.
No, that's great. I mean, I've seen him live, and he is hilarious. Do you think
That's
your
awesome.
comedy style is like his, or what is your what is your comedy style?
I'm definitely a storyteller. I would say yeah, I'm kind of especially ever since I got married, I do a lot more like stories. I do a lot of like that kind of style of comedy. I would say I'm not like angry on stage. I think that's definitely a Burr thing that I don't really do. I mean, I bitch about things because who doesn't? But I yeah, I don't know. I like to just think I'm kind of just a storyteller that is able to make you giggle about some stuff as I'm going through it. Because I think I grew up around storytellers where, I grew up in the Midwest. So I feel like every old dude you knew had the best stories on earth. Most of them probably weren't real, and that's fine. Like they were just funny. Like they would tell you some crazy story, whether it's about them breaking down in their truck or them hunting something or a snake that fell out of the rafters. What and they just had the best story. So I feel like I always grew up around that and being like, oh, that's what you do. You just find the best stories to tell, and I've just been able to take that to doing it on stage.
No, it's great. I mean, my favorite video of yours is when a heckler's trying to like
No,
heckle you, and like the jean
yeah,
jacket, you call him out, and I was like, this is a great, my favorite video of
yeah.
yours.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, that guy, he was there on I think a first date, and all night he like kept on messing with people and whatever, like saying stuff. And I finally was like, all right, I was one of the more like senior comics in which still at the time, I was like a 3 year comic. So I wasn't like good yet, but I was like one of the more like senior guys that kind of helped put stuff together there. And, yeah, that dude, he just, wouldn't shut up and wouldn't shut up. And finally, me and him go back and forth. And whenever it was the end of the night that night, she like got up and was leaving. And we're like, oh yeah, they're never having a second date. There's no chance. That guy just like came here, didn't realize what he was getting himself into at all.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's what it's all about, though. I mean,
Yeah,
you open your mouth like that to a comedian, you're gonna get talked to
yeah,
and
yeah.
made
So
fun of.
yeah, definitely, it made for a lot of fun. Thankfully, he took it all well though. Sometimes people don't always take it in stride. So
Yeah.
every once in a while,
What's the hardest part about breaking into the comedy world?
I think it's time. I mean, it's just like anything you do. Everything that you do takes uh, years of work, and I think that's definitely the thing that's the hardest about comedy is you have to whatever you have going on in your life, you have to then dedicate the extra time to go out get on stage as much as possible, as often as possible, and you got to go out and suck a lot. So you got to go out there and be like, oh, I'm going to bomb because I have this idea, but I don't really have it worked out. And maybe only half the crowd cares anyways. But it's just the constant reps and sets that you got to do. And, but the best thing is if you can get a good group of comics around you, where you can have fun doing that, it makes it so much easier. But yeah, the time is definitely the big thing.
Yeah, stacking those small wins on top of each other. If you could give one piece of advice to someone chasing their dreams, what would it be?
Just don't quit. Just no one's gonna do it for you, and you're only gonna get in your own way for not doing it. And it doesn't really matter what it is. It doesn't matter if you want to make a YouTube channel about, you know, types of birds, or if you want to be a stand-up comedian or whatever. Just do it and have fun doing it. Don't ever let anything that you're doing out of passion become work, because that's why we're doing this. Like, I mean, there's some comics that you meet that just over time they just get like worn down and beat up by the whole grind of the whole thing. And you're like, hey man, just remember, this is the funnest thing to do. So keep it the funnest thing to do. That's the way that, because if not, go get a desk job. Like go sit in the AC and get a mortgage and have a good life. But if you're doing it, just always find a way to make it fun. If it's not being fun, try to remember why you got into it.
Yeah, that's well put. I mean, I love to say is don't do it for love, do it from love.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Yeah, I think that that's just a very good thing of like, hey, if you don't want to be, don't make your passion miserable, because then you're messing up your side thing. Because for everything you're doing, it's probably going to take a lot of years of working a regular job you don't like, and then doing the side thing and all the work. So just have fun with it. Just always have a good time, and bring people in that you want to work with and that are fun to be around. People that suck, don't be around them as best you can. Sometimes you got to be around those people, but even then, like, just try to remember, like, hey, we're all having fun. This is the easy thing. Go out and do whatever the passion or the dream is, and just always have a good time doing it.
So true. I mean, go out there and have fun. Eric, do you remember a moment when you felt like, hey, I made it as a comedian?
Yeah. So I was only like 3 years in, um, but it was one of those like milestones that, looking back, it didn't mean as much, but it meant everything then. So I got my first like big gig where I got invited to come and do a theater. It was just me, a bunch of the comics I performed with all the time, but there was this monthly showcase, and I got invited to the showcase, and it was in the same town that my dad grew up in. So the venue I was performing in is where my dad used to go watch concerts at as a kid. So my dad got to come out and actually watch me perform on stage in the same place where he watched like rock bands back in the 80s. And that was like the coolest thing to me. I was like, oh shit, look at this, dude. Like, that was definitely the big, like, oh, okay, cool. And it made me see, like, hey, it's working. There's the levels and the stages and the steps you got to take. And then you have those moments. And I was so excited. Like, I got off stage, I went back into the green room, and a couple of the other comics, they were like, you're like freaking out still. And I was like, yeah, I'm so happy. Like, it went well. I had a good set. My dad got to come and see me perform here in this venue that he watched concerts at as a kid. That's amazing. Like, that was definitely like one of the big where I'm like, hell yeah, this is awesome.
That's such an incredible story. It's a milestone. Really
Yeah.
is.
Oh yeah.
I mean, what a rewarding moment.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those that you're like, and like I said, looking back, it was like, it really was just a show I got booked on, and I I didn't think I made like $20. Like, I made like $20 to do it. I probably spent more than that at the bar afterwards, celebrating with all my buddies. But just the moment itself meant more than anything else. Like, and I was just, those are the things you're shooting for the whole time.
No, it's so true. What's the most unexpected thing you've learned about yourself through comedy?
Oh, that's a good question. You got good questions. I like that. Um, I think I've learned that I deal with things better through humor than any other way. Like a fellow comic of mine, we all have big group chat text threads and stuff with all your buddies. I mean, a couple comics have one, and our one buddy texted us, and he's like, "Hey, I just got fired today," and we're all like, "Tough man, that sucks." We're like, "Hey, you want to like get together, get a drink, whatever?" And in the middle of it, I was sitting there thinking, and I was like, "Damn, dude, he's gonna have so much material from getting fired." And I told him that, and I was like, "Man, there's something wrong with me, but this is like the thought process I have for this." And it's helped me realize like if you take a bad moment and instantly try to like get something out of it in that kind of way, where you're like, "Oh, what's a joke I can tell from this?" or how can I tell this story on stage, or how can I make other people laugh from this bad situation? It almost kind of instantly pulls you out of it, where you're like, "Oh, I'm already on the up from this, as bad as it might be, or whatever." And of course, there's circumstances, but that's definitely one of the things I've learned. Like, oh, the faster that you find a way to laugh about it, the easier it's all going to be.
No, comedy really does teach you how to be creative.
Oh yeah, for sure, yeah. And heck, with stuff like this, the amount of whenever I was growing up, I was like, I'm not gonna learn how to use computers or technology or any of this kind of stuff because I'm not gonna need it. And the amount of time I sat there and been like, if I could go back and just punch 16-year-old me in the face and just be like, learn how to type, dude. Just go take a typing class. It's gonna save you hours later on. Take like minimal programming, take a little bit of editing classes, like just do some little stuff. You'll thank yourself so much later on.
Eric, can I ask you, how do you handle bombing on stage?
Oh man, so bombing bombing always sucks. Um, it helps and hurts if you have your friends, like fellow comics that you're like good friends with there whenever you bomb, because they will let you know you bombed and they will bring it up for months. And even whenever you do good, they'll be like, "Yeah, but remember when you bombed?" And it it hurts every time that it does happen, but it's always just making sure the next time you perform, you don't bomb. That's the best way of looking at it. It's like, hey, if I can not bomb the next time, then at least I gain something out of it. Now, if you bomb 4 or 5 times in a row, maybe you need to sit down, write some new material. But as long as the next, you makes you work harder for the next set, it it can all be all right. But it definitely is nice having your buddies there in the back of the room because sometimes they'll be laughing so hard at you bombing that you're like, God, I'm gonna hear about this forever. This is never going away. Like we did a big show, me and a couple of the guys I tour with down here, and I panicked like at the very end of my set, and I ended my set like 2 minutes early because I just like blanked out. I was like, dude, I haven't done this in forever, of like forgetting what I was gonna say. Every time I see them, they go, "Oh, you gonna cut it short again tonight?" Just you just gotta go, damn it. All right, yeah, you gotta. They keep you honest.
No, yeah, failure can be such a valuable teacher.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
What's the best advice you ever received from another comic?
Get on stage. That's yeah. A lot of people uh they'll try to get you advice about how to rewrite a joke, how to write jokes, but the truth about comedy is everyone kind of has their own way of doing it, and there's not an exactly right way because think of 5 different comedians, you're gonna think of 5 completely different styles. You know, Bert Kreischer and Nate Bargatze are two very different comics, and then you got, Bill Burr, all very different. So the best thing to do is just get on stage as much as possible and then figure out what your style is and what your voice is. And that was the best thing I heard is, whenever somebody told me like, hey, just keep on going up.
Yeah, how would you describe your style of comedy?
I would definitely say storytelling. Like that's probably the easiest way of kind of broad stroking it. Just definitely a storyteller.
Yeah, where do you get most of your material from?
A lot of life stuff. A lot of stuff. Me and the wife had it. 2024 was I had a lot going on. I got married. Um, we bought our first home together. So um, we both bought newer vehicles than I was driving a vehicle from the 80s. So and those kind of experiences just get a lot of stuff and thoughts out of them as you're going along. Of you have like a little fight about something, and then you're like, oh well, maybe somebody else has had this fight, or maybe someone else has like had this kind of thought process in a fight, or had this other experience. That's definitely where I draw a lot from. It's just kind of life experience of doing stuff, and as you're going through doing things of like, oh, this was kind of funny.
Yeah, I've always wondered what the writing process is like for coming up with new jokes and bits.
Yeah, everyone kind of has a little bit different of a process. I I really like to go and kind of the way that I form all of my material, or a lot of my material is I'll have an idea. I get out to an open mic because you don't want to perform brand new stuff for the first time on a show. Because if it does do terrible, you don't want an audience to be like, "This guy sucks." Like this is terrible. So you want to go out to like open mics and try it out and see, where are your beats, where are your things from there. I record all my sets. I don't always do visual recording, but I always audio record. That way you can go back if you haven't like a riff or a tag off something that you haven't really thought of before, but in the moment it works. I then just go back, I audio listen to it, and then I try to write from there. Of like, oh, that's got to go. That's not working. That was funny to me, but it didn't really work for an audience. Or oh hey, I need to expand on this, make people understand, why I'm saying this or what I'm talking about, or where I'm coming up with this idea, and then just go back out, perform it again, and repeat, wash, repeat, recycle kind of thing.
No, it's cool to see how much thought goes into it.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely one of those that whenever you look at comedy, you go, oh well, they're just talking, and some people are just talking. Just at the same time, there are some guys that are so good that they really can just go up there and just the whole way their brain works is just amazing. Louis C.K. has always been known as somebody who writes on stage. He goes up and he works out everything and gets all the beats and everything, and then there's other comics that sit down and write for hours, and then they work through the writing and then they go perform it. So there's a lot of different processes and things like that, and that's definitely the reason why it's like, hey, you just got to do it a lot. Figure out how can you be the funniest you can be.
No, like I said, it's cool to see how much effort goes into making people laugh. I
Yeah.
mean, what has been the most rewarding moment in your career so far?
I think honestly, getting to the point of having the Birthday Boys podcast, um, I love it because it's such another great avenue for me to be able to come up with ideas and to meet so many people and get to know people better. 'Cause, a lot of times whenever you're doing comedy, you're just kind of doing anything out in the world. You'll see people, you'll talk to people for a little bit, and you see people around, and then whenever you get to bring them into a podcast, you're like, oh, I feel like I really got to know this person, or you know, some sometimes that turns out you're like, oh, I got to know him, and I don't want to know him anymore. So it's the fun thing, but I do think it's been one of the funnest endeavors I've gotten to dive into, and I'm glad I got to start doing it whenever I did because I feel like I was experienced enough to know what I didn't know. Like I knew, like I really, I have the guy that I work with on Birthday Boys. He helped found everything, put it all together, and then found me. He's like, "Hey, you're funny. Come on, you come be funny. I know how to do editing." So we're a perfect team, and we both know, like, oh, this is his beat, this is my beat. Like we know how to work together, and it's definitely one of the funnest things to do. Where you're like, oh, I just get to go and hang out, talk shit, and then you sometimes get to bring comics on or bring other people on, and it's such a good time every week.
No, on Birthday Boys, your energy is electric. I mean, what made you decide to start it?
Yeah, so I had tried to do a podcast on my own back whenever I was still in Missouri, and I realized I didn't know anything about editing or producing or camera angles or any of this kind of stuff. So whenever I moved to Austin, me and my producer that put Birthday Boys together, I actually found him on a Craigslist ad. He just put this Craigslist ad up on a Facebook group and said, looking for talent to do a podcast. And I told my now wife, I was like, hey, I'm going to go meet this guy in a bar. If I end up never coming home, this is the guy that murdered me because I did meet him on Craigslist. So just be aware of that. But just in case, if not, uh, you know, I'm going to meet this guy. And we clicked right away and, started doing the podcast and, uh, you know, going through all the different set designs and locations and filming here and filming there. And it was one of those I was like, man, sometimes opportunities just fall in your lap perfectly. And it's worked out so well that I'm like, oh, I got so lucky. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it is just luck at a certain point where you're like, man, I was ready to do this at the right time, and he was the right person to be doing it with.
Yeah, some things just fall right in line. I mean, how does hosting the podcast compare to performing live on stage?
Yeah, it's definitely a different styling because it's more talkative and like more back and forth. But I've noticed it helps a lot with the writing process and coming up with new material. Just because you're you're like you're still trying to be funny, you're still trying to work out how do I make whatever we're talking about funny, or how do I get to a punchline or anything like that, and or like what's a funny thing to say after somebody else said something else. So it kind of is in the same vein. It's just a little bit different styling. It's more that like hanging out with your buddies, having some beers, sitting in the garage, sitting at the bar. It's like that kind of humor, which always is just very fun and relaxed. Where you're like, oh, I've been doing this my whole life. So the it's the easiest form of comedy to me. And like I said, having the guy I work with on it, he makes it so easy also because he'll come up with, hey, I got a skit today. And I want to go and like put you through, some questions or whatever. And I always tell him like, hey, don't tell me anything. Just hit me with it. Just roll the cameras and throw stuff at me. And that way I get to improv off of it and just play with it. Sometimes it goes good. Sometimes it goes really bad. Sometimes we're like, ooh, that joke might not have been a good idea.
Yeah, do you have a favorite joke or a bit you can share?
Um, yeah, so, oh man, it's, like I said, I do a lot of storytelling stuff. I can kind of broad stroke it. Right now, my favorite joke I've been doing is just, it's about, me and my wife going on our honeymoon and just kind of all the stuff that we're getting into and having happen on our honeymoon. And kind of the like little nuancy stuff. Um, I'll say like I said, it's kind of a long story bit, but it's one of my favorites that I'm doing right now. I'm always very excited every time I get to like do it on stage.
No, it's great how you use your world around you as in your bits.
Yeah, I think for me, I was never as good about like the like quick little setup punchline, like the not really street jokes, but like the just da 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 kind of style. I've always been better at telling a story and then finding all the little stuff in the story to tell, add in and punch up and talk about. So it's definitely been the easiest way for me to always come up with new material. It's just, hey, we were doing this weekend. What was some of the stuff that happened, or what did I think I was getting myself into versus what actually happened, and it's yeah, definitely been the easiest way for me to write, and it also helps kind of keep you out doing stuff. Whenever you're like, hey, if I'm just sitting around the house, hard to hard to just come up with a whole lot whenever you're just sitting around not doing anything.
Yeah, do you ever work your jokes around cancel culture?
A little bit. Not a whole lot. I think that a lot of the greats have been handling it pretty well. Especially you look at what like Dave Chappelle has done over. He had that like four specials that were all kind of this one big story that went into it, and guys like Rogan and stuff that they definitely have, I think, handled it enough that I'm like, oh, I'm until I come up with a premise as good as that hasn't already been brought up, or a way of talking about it that's been brought up. I think I try to not, just because I'm like, man, they got it. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. Just let the legends keep on working
Yeah,
and doing what they're doing. They take care of all the hecklers and everyone that's
yeah,
cancel culture, trying to shut everyone down for just making
yeah,
people laugh.
yeah, and also I think we're phasing out of a lot of that. I think a lot, it started off where that we were really taking it was coming after people that deserved it. They were getting people that you're like, oh, this guy was a terrible person to women and all this kind of stuff. And then it got to the point where it's like, this guy was mean on a podcast to other comics that were also laughing, and you're like, we lost it, we lost it, we missed, we went too far. So I think a lot of people are getting to the point where like, we get it, we know how it really, that's not the real world anymore. People have kind of been around enough that they, especially comedy fans, they're like, oh, Shane Gillis isn't a bad person. He just makes jokes. Take those jokes out of context, yeah, maybe they sound really bad, but it's not that he's a bad person. He's just making his friend laugh that's sitting there. That's so,
Yeah, what has been the most memorable experience hosting the birthday boys so far?
yeah. I think just kind of all in all getting to meet so many people. I don't know if I can even like bring it down to just one like individual thing. I think just uh like all the experience with all the different guests in general has been so nice, and getting to really talk with people, and then you hang out before or after, have some drinks with them, and get to know people. That kind of just the whole experience has been so nice. Of uh, sometimes you sit around and you're like, oh, this is something I get to just do. That's awesome.
Yeah, if you could tell one joke for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh man, I think right now it might be this honeymoon bit I've been doing. I'm not gonna lie, I've been having a lot of fun with it. So I think, and anyone in the Austin area, or anyone in Salt Lake City, I'm going to be in Salt Lake City at the end of this month. So anybody that's out there, I'm probably going to be doing that material. So if anybody wants to come out and check it out, I'm having a lot of fun with it right now.
That's great. I mean, Eric, where can people follow you and support your comedy journey?
Yeah, so Instagram is Eric Biggs Comedy. The Birthday Boys channel, it's Birthday Boys Comedy. Here, let me make sure I plug it correctly.
It'll be
It's
in the description as well.
perfect. Yeah, Birthday Boys Comedy on YouTube. We also have an Instagram for the Birthday Boys channel. We have new videos every Monday that come out. Let them out. We put them out at 8 a.m. Something to get that nice drive into work or on your way home from work. A nice start off to the week. And then the podcast I do with my buddy Matt Butera, that's on all platforms: Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast, all that kind of stuff. That's the Thick Skin, and everything is linked. You can find everything through my Instagram.
No, great. Like I said, everything will be in the description. And I got
Perfect.
some more questions for you. I've been holding
Yeah.
this one off. What does success mean to you?
Oh man, success is. I think success in comedy is just not having to do anything that I don't want to do. Um, Overall, like I've always said that as I would love to be a Rogan, or a Chappelle, Shane Gillis, but if I can just get to the point where I'm making good money, able to, you know, support me and the wife and pay for everything just from doing comedy and doing podcasting, everything past that, that's just an added bonus. You know what I mean? So that's definitely where I'm at. It's like I don't need the world. I just want to be able to do just the stuff I love for a living.
No, I love that. That's what it's all about. Now,
Yeah, absolutely.
if you could go back to your younger self and tell yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh man, move sooner from Missouri. Uh I I probably should have left there a little bit earlier than I did. I definitely got comfortable in my like starting scene, and I probably should have left a little bit sooner than I did to do it more seriously faster.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, changing your situation can always help what you're going through as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those that I it all kind of lined up so well. I always kind of figured I was never going to be living in LA or living in New York. It's just not. It doesn't really fit me. You know what I mean? Like the cities of that size and the environment. Just kind of. It's such a culture shock. I grew up in a town of 2,000 people in the middle of Missouri, so even coming to Austin, I'm like, 1 million people? That's insane. Everyone's this move from LA is like, oh, it's such a little town. I'm like, no, this place is humongous. So it definitely is was a culture shock a little bit where you're just introduced to so much more stuff.
Yeah, I mean, as a comedian, what's the biggest gig you've done?
I think probably so the Blue Note, in Columbia is probably one of the biggest venues that I've done. Um, a lot of club work and things like that. But yeah, probably the Blue Note in Columbia, Missouri is probably the biggest venue I've ever been able to perform at.
Now, like I said before, I love your energy. Keep up the hard work. You're doing great.
Yeah.
And no, what's one thing you hope people remember about you?
Hopefully they found something funny. I'll just hopefully I made them laugh once. It's always the goal.
Yeah. Do you have any shout outs? Do you want to shout out anyone?
Yeah, say shout the my producer on Birthday Boys, JP. You can find all of his stuff on Instagram, JP with the good hair. My I'm doing the stretch of shows with a group of comics down here called the Dad Bod Comedy Tour. Check that out. It's on Instagram, and we are trying to plan out shows throughout 2025 to come to different states and cities all over the country. So definitely check those out. My buddy Bill Rhodes, the Foul Mouth Teacher on Instagram, he kind of put all that together and got all of us together to be doing those out on the road. And yeah, so it's I just work with a lot of great guys.
No, Eric, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's been a blast. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, your story into the world of comedy has been incredible, and I can't wait to see what's next for you.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. look forward to doing this again. Further down the road. Hopefully, I'll be touring even more. So,
That's what it's all about. And to the listeners, thank you for tuning in. This is Every Day is Friday. Until next time. This thing with that.